She wore her uniform. She followed protocol. She showed her ID. And they still put their hands on her. That morning, Sergeant Emily Torres didn't break any law. She stopped for gas. But within 10 minutes, she was in handcuffs, her dignity bruised by the very system she'd sworn to protect. So let me ask you this. What exactly does a woman have to do to be believed? Let's begin. Ma'am, I need you to step away from the vehicle. Now. The words sliced through the crisp morning air, sharp and cold like a blade. The sun hadn't yet cleared the awning of the hardware store across Route 17 southwest of Greenville, Texas, leaving the BP station bathed in the gray chill of pre-dawn. The air carried the acrid bite of diesel-stale coffee and asphalt clinging to Sergeant Emily Torres like a second skin. She stood at the pump, her debit card still warm from her fingers, the faint hum of the machine, the only sound until those words landed. She didn't flinch. Not yet. Excuse me. Her voice was steady, deliberate as she turned her head. Two officers stood by their white patrol SUV 3 pumps away. The younger one badge reading Miller was lean, wiry. His buzz cut so tight it looked painful. His shoulders were squared eyes glinting with the over-eager intensity of a fresh academy grad. The other Hall was older, heavier, his movements deliberate, almost lazy. Mirrored sunglasses hid his eyes, but his jaw was a clenched relic of a bygone era. We had a call, Miller said, stepping forward. Suspicious behavior. Someone in camouflage. Loitering. Acting erratic. Emily's eyes narrowed. Her uniform was crisp, regulation perfect. Her ID badge gleamed on her chest, catching the faint light. Her boots were laced to military precision, her duffel bag neatly stowed in the back seat visible through the SUV's window. No loitering, no erratic behavior. Just a woman grabbing gas on her way to a training weekend, fighting the dull ache of caffeine withdrawal. I'm on my way to Fort Adams, she said, her tone flat but cooperative. Training weekend. You're welcome to verify. Miller didn't pause. He closed the distance between them, his boots scraping the pavement, his posture radiating the swagger of someone who'd binged too many cop shows and learned all the wrong lessons. He stopped close, too close, his breath faintly sour, his chest puffed out. License and ID, he demanded. Emily didn't argue. Her movements were slow, deliberate palms visible as she reached into her jacket pocket and retrieved her wallet. She handed over her driver's license and military ID, her fingers steady despite the prickle of unease creeping up her spine. He took them, his eyes flicking over the documents for half a second before shoving them into his pocket. Step away from the car. Her brow furrowed. That's not standard, officer. Miller's lips curled into a smile, not wide, just enough to show he wasn't asking. Just a precaution, he said, his voice low, almost intimate. Turn around, hands behind your back. Emily's heart didn't race. It slowed heavy like a soldier bracing for impact. Her training kicked in, assess, stay calm, de-escalate. She stood her ground, her boots planted firmly on the cracked pavement. I'm not resisting, she said, her voice low but firm. You've seen my identification. You have no probable cause. Miller moved before she could finish. His hand pressed against her lower back, firm, at first professional in its placement. Then it shifted, lower, deliberate. His palm slid over the curve of her hip, fingers splaying wide, lingering in a way that wasn't a pat-down. It was a claim. His touch was heavy, invasive, his fingers curling slightly as they grazed the seam of her uniform pants, tracing the outline of her body with a slow, deliberate pressure. Emily's breath caught her muscles locking into place. Her skin burned under his touch, not from heat, but from violation, a sickening wave of disgust coiling in her gut. She wanted to spin, to shove him back, to break his wrist with a single twist, but she didn't. She couldn't. Not yet. Her mind raced, cataloging every detail, his badge number, his stance, the weight of his hand. She forced herself to stay still, to keep her face neutral, even as her pulse hammered in her ears. Easy there, Sergeant Miller murmured, his voice a low rasp near her ear. His breath was hot, too close, carrying the faint tang of chewing tobacco. Try to stay calm. The word calm was a mockery, a taunt. Her jaw clenched so hard her teeth ached, her body rigid as his hand lingered, his fingers pressing harder, sliding lower still, grazing the top of her thigh. It wasn't a search. It was a violation cloaked in the thin veneer of procedure. Then came Hall. He stepped forward, his boots heavy on the pavement, circling to her front. Checking for concealed, he muttered, his voice flat, almost bored, as if this were routine. His hands moved to her chest, and Emily's world narrowed to the point of contact. His fingers didn't pat or sweep, they groped. His palms pressed against her breasts, lingering far longer than any search required, his thumbs brushing deliberately over the fabric of her uniform. He squeezed just enough to make it clear this wasn't about weapons. It was about power. His mirrored sunglasses reflected her face, her lips pressed tight, her eyes blazing with a fury she could barely contain. For a beat, the world paused, still suspended like breath before the recoil. Emily didn't cry out. That was a choice. Her voice had been trained for command, not desperation, and she wouldn't hand them that satisfaction. But her back went rigid, her jaw locking as though it might shatter from the pressure. She knew what had just happened. She knew what it was. And she also knew what it would be called: a misunderstanding, a miscommunication, a procedural overstep. Her eyes met Hall's. He hadn't moved, just stood to the side, arms crossed, a human monument to complicity. His expression never changed, but she caught the subtle flick of his brow, acknowledgement, not remorse. "I said you're resisting," Miller snapped. Emily turned toward him, slow and deliberate, her voice coiled tight with restraint. "You just put your hands on me in a way that violates every regulation in your handbook and mine." That wasn't a search. Something in her tone, measured but unyielding, made him blink. Just once. Then, as if to reclaim the upper hand, he grabbed her wrists and yanked them behind her metal cuffs, clicking hard against bone. She winced at the pressure, at the twist of her shoulder. The force wasn't necessary. It was the point. With one shove, she was bent forward against the hood of her SUV. Her cheek hit the cold metal, the contact sudden and humiliating. The heat from the engine had begun to fade, replaced by the morning's chill that now seeped through her uniform and into her skin. Somewhere to the left, a voice rang out, sharp and angry. "Hey! What the hell do you think you're doing?" Another voice followed, higher. Female, indignant. "She's military. He just grabbed her. I got it on video." Emily's breathing slowed to a controlled rhythm, inhale through the nose, exhale through the teeth. Not panic, not fear, discipline. She didn't lift her head as Miller shoved open the back door of the cruiser and forced her inside. Vinyl seats cracked beneath her weight. The cuffs bit deeper as she twisted to sit. Her uniform tugged awkwardly at the seams, her badge askew, half hidden under a fold of fabric. She could feel the stretch marks on her dignity, subtle but deep. From outside, the noise rose. A woman, likely the one filming, yelled again, something about misconduct, about knowing her rights. Footsteps, shouts, the low growl of engines idling, then honking. Inside the patrol car, the air smelled of synthetic leather, old sweat and stale fries. Emily sat still, arms twisted behind her head, tilted slightly to see out the side window. Miller was pacing now, jaw tight. Hall leaned against the SUV, arms still folded as if waiting for the coffee to brew. "Phone," she said. Her voice no louder than before, but there was no mistaking the steel in it now. "You're detaining a uniformed soldier. I'm entitled to notify my command. Article 31. Miller didn't look at her. "You'll make your call at the station." "That's not how this works." She shifted the cuffs, biting again. "This isn't a misunderstanding. This is a breach." Finally, Hall moved. Slowly. He opened the front passenger door, leaned in, then came around to the back. Without a word, he dropped her phone onto her lap, still locked. She didn't thank him. It took effort to twist just enough to tap the screen with the side of her thumb. Facial recognition failed. She typed the code one-handed, 4 digits. Her thumb swiped twice. One name. Marcus Delgado. It rang once, then again. The call connected. 2 seconds of silence. Then Emily. Her voice was low but steady, almost surgical. BP station off Route 17. Cuffed. They touched me. Search was inappropriate. There are witnesses. One's filming. Another pause. Longer this time. Marcus Delgado leaned forward in his chair, hand tightening around the armrest, the soft leather creaking beneath the grip. He didn't ask what she meant by touched. He didn't need to. He'd heard it in the way her breath clipped her words and the precision of her report. Emily didn't embellish. She didn't dramatize. She reported, and that made it worse. "I'm en route," he said. "Line stays open." He stood the phone pressed between cheek and shoulder, already reaching for his keys on the desk. His office at Fort Adams was quiet, the kind of sterile silence only found in early hours before briefings and drills. A framed commendation clinked against the wall as he brushed past it. The scent of old coffee still lingered from the pot someone had left half-brewed. "Dispatch," he barked into the Bluetooth as he slid behind the wheel of his SUV. "Colonel Marcus Delgado. Confirm any units deployed near BP station off 17, suspected mishandling of military personnel. I want call signs, badge numbers, and dashcam activation status." The dispatcher stammered. "Sir, we're not cleared to release." "Get me cleared. Or get your supervisor." He didn't wait for acknowledgement before clicking over to another line. His fingers moved with military rhythm, tap swipe call. "Davis," he said when a voice answered. "I need traffic cam footage pulled now. Overpass near 17 westbound. Gas station perimeter. I want timestamp verification. Civilians are filming. I want to see before it goes national." "Understood," came the reply. Another line. "A councilman's personal cell." The man didn't answer, but Marcus left a message sharp as gravel. "Martin, it's Delgado. If you want to keep your seat, I suggest you find out why a uniformed soldier was cuffed and assaulted on your watch. I'm 10 minutes out." By the time Marcus Delgado crossed the city line, the story had already left it. A barista on break had uploaded a clip to YouTube less than a minute long, shaky, grainy, but clear enough. It showed a woman in camouflage, arms behind her back pressed against the hood of an SUV, while a young officer's hand wandered where it had no right to go. There was no sound, but the silence made it worse. 2 hours later, it had 48,000 views. By the third hour, 85,000. At the BP station, the crowd had doubled. Some held up signs fashioned from cardboard boxes pulled from their trunks. Others simply stood phones, raised expressions flat. A kind of collective quiet was forming, not calm but pressure building beneath still water. Marissa Klein arrived just past 8. She was 34, wore no makeup, and had the brisk confidence of someone who'd covered real stories, not just ribbon cuttings and weather delays. Her press badge hung lopsided from her neck, swaying slightly as she walked the perimeter scanning faces for someone who'd speak. It didn't take long. Lisa was near the edge of the crowd, thumb still pressed to her phone screen, live video, streaming in real time. "She's a soldier," Lisa said to Marissa. "I saw the badge." He touched her. He smiled when he did it. Marissa held up her recorder. "Do you mind if I—" "No," Lisa said. "People need to know." Down the block, car horns blared, rubberneckers slowing traffic. A woman with 2 toddlers on her hip muttered, "They always do this when it's someone in uniform. Think it won't bite back." Emily remained inside the cruiser, still cuffed, still silent. The rear window was cracked 2 inches. Enough to breathe. Enough to listen. The nurse's voice carried through the glass, leaned into her chest, like he was checking for a weapon on her collarbone. Emily closed her eyes. For a moment, she counted 3 and hold 4 out. Tactical breathing, the kind you use when your legs are about to go numb in a foxhole. No apology had come. No procedure had been followed. The officers still hovered Miller Restless Hall, watchful. At 8:27 a.m., another SUV pulled into the lot police, but not from the same precinct. The man who stepped out wore a different badge, lower, slung heavier at the hip. Lieutenant Charles Avery, Regional Liaison. Mid-40s, clean-shaven, the kind of presence that made people clear a path without being asked. He walked directly to the cruiser. Sergeant Emily Torres. His voice was measured. Emily opened her eyes. Yes, I'm with Regional Oversight. I've reviewed your ID, confirmed your status with Fort Adams. Colonel Delgado called ahead. He nodded to Hall. Keys, now. Hall didn't argue this time. He retrieved the cuff's key from his belt and handed it over without a word. Avery opened the door himself. Emily stepped out with care. Her wrists bore deep, fresh impressions. She didn't rub them. Avery studied her a beat too long before saying, I'm sorry. This should never have happened. Emily looked past him to the crowd, the phones, the press badge swinging from Marissa Klein's neck. No, she said quietly. But it did. The words landed heavier than a speech would have. Avery turned to the two officers. You're relieved. Internal Affairs will follow up. Leave your body cams with your unit commander. Miller shifted, lips parting. Lieutenant, if I could just explain. You will. In writing. To the review board. He didn't speak again. You're not sorry, Emily said. The wind had picked up slightly enough to shift the hem of her uniform against her thigh as she stood beside the BP station. Her gaze never left Miller's. You're just sorry you got caught. He blinked but said nothing. That was answer enough. Marcus placed a steady hand on her shoulder. It wasn't paternal. It wasn't protective. It was grounding permission to step away. They walked back to her SUV in silence, passing by the woman in scrubs, the barista still clutching her phone, and the councilman's aide now suddenly present and watching from a distance he could later deny. The pump, where it all began, was still blinking. Please insert payment. Emily didn't. They didn't speak again until the doors of Marcus's vehicle closed behind them, muffling the rising clatter of reporters' questions. Statement, he asked, eyes fixed on the road ahead. No. They'll keep asking. Let them. The silence in the cabin was not empty. It was dense. Emily sat with her hands on her lap, her wrists still marked by faint red lines. The badge on her chest was straight now, the threads tugged tight where she'd pinned it back into place. Her duffel had been tossed in the back seat. She didn't look at it. That evening, Fort Adams received formal notice from the Department of Defense. Preliminary inquiry initiated. An internal incident report was requested. Emily filled it out by hand, her pen scraping against paper with calm deliberation. No emotion in the language. Just facts. Date, time, location. Sequence of actions. Physical contact. Restraint. Civilian witness accounts. No hyperbole. No adjectives. She submitted it and declined to speak further. She did not attend the press debriefing the next morning. Marcus went in her place. When asked why the sergeant wasn't present, he responded simply, "She's a soldier, not a symbol." That didn't stop the news cycle. Lisa's live stream had now surpassed 200,000 views. Clips had been edited, slowed, subtitled. One popular edit cut between Miller's hand and Emily's, silence replaying the contact 3 times in close-up, then freezing on her expression, stone, still eyes forward, fury held in. The headline beneath it read, "This is what silence looks like." Across state lines, other female veterans began sharing their own stories in comment threads, accounts long buried, moments dismissed by chain of command or buried beneath procedure. Emily's name became a tag used without her consent, without her voice, but not without impact. By Friday, someone leaked the body cam footage. It began like every other time, stamped a little shaky. The frame angled slightly upward as if the vest it clung to was too tall. At minute 3, Miller's voice could be heard, faint but unmistakable. "Think she's one of those drama types. They fake this stuff all the time. Just let her stew in there." Then a low chuckle. "Halls. Real or not, she's got that attitude. Let her cool off in the back." No one in the video objected. No procedure was reviewed. No command was confirmed. Marcus watched the footage in his office with the door closed, jaw tight, eyes narrow. When it ended, he didn't speak for a long time. Then he forwarded the clip to Internal Affairs, the Military Inspector General, and 3 major outlets who had asked for a quote. The statement came just before dawn. Typed in cool, bureaucratic font, wrapped in the insignia of the Greenville Police Department, and posted online with no accompanying press conference, officers Miller and Hall have been placed on unpaid administrative leave pending a full investigation. No apology, no names, just procedure wrapped in formality. The internet was not impressed. By mid-morning, the response thread outpaced the original post. Veterans groups reposted screenshots with captions like, "Unpaid leave is not accountability." A retired Air Force colonel wrote, "If this is what they do on camera, imagine what goes unreported." A quiet fury spread in comment sections, not shouting, but steady, deliberate disappointment. It was the kind of rage that didn't vanish. It waited. Emily sat alone in the Commons area at Fort Adams Coffee, cooling beside her. She wasn't scheduled to train that day, but she came anyway. Routine steadied her. She didn't speak much. A few soldiers nodded as they passed, but no one stopped to ask. She wasn't invisible. She was untouchable, and that wasn't the same. Outside the base gates, a line had formed. Dozens of veterans stood with candles. Some held flags folded tight under their arms. Others simply stood in silence, backs straight, eyes forward, formation without order. No chants. No signs. Just presence. A woman named Karen Navy, 20 years, brought a thermos of coffee and placed it on the sidewalk near the gate. She didn't speak. She just nodded once when a guard thanked her and joined the others. Emily didn't go out to see them. But she knew. She felt it, the weight of quiet belief held by people who'd carried heavier things than signs. Marcus handed her an envelope later that evening. "Anonymous email," he said. "Forwarded through the base admin. Found its way to you." Emily unfolded the printed page. "I'm a patrol officer. I wasn't on shift that day. But I watched the footage. I watched it twice. Then again. I won't stay quiet next time. You didn't speak, but you stood still. That mattered. I'll do better. No name. No badge number." Emily read it again, then opened her inbox, clicked forward, and sent it to Marcus with one word typed in the subject line. "Hope." He didn't reply. He didn't have to. 2 days later, the city called a press conference, held in the aging municipal hall downtown, ceiling fans creaking overhead. Microphones balanced on a collapsible podium, the mayor read from a prepared statement. "This incident has highlighted gaps in our policies, particularly concerning interactions with active military personnel. We are initiating a department-wide retraining effort. Body cam protocol will be revised. Officers will undergo mandatory sessions on physical search standards, especially regarding female detainees in uniform." The chief of police stood beside him. His arms were crossed, jaw tight, face unreadable. When a reporter asked if this counted as an admission of fault, he answered, "This is an acknowledgement that improvement is overdue." The invitation arrived by courier, crisp, envelope, official seal. Emily opened it on her porch, the same porch where she'd spent quiet evenings watching the neighborhood shift in and out of light. The note was formal. "You are cordially invited to speak before the City Oversight Committee this Thursday regarding matters of departmental conduct and military-civilian protocol." She read it once, then folded it back into its envelope, untouched by hesitation. Marcus stopped by later that afternoon. His presence had become routine now, not official, not familial, but something in between. "You going?" he asked, nodding to the sealed paper on her table. "No," Emily said. "You'd be heard." "I already was." He looked at her a moment, then nodded, not in agreement but understanding. "So where will you be instead?" She glanced at the clock. Veterans Hall. They asked for me too. The room was low-lit, filled with folding chairs, polished boots, and hands that had learned to steady rifles before steering grandkids. Mostly older vets, men and women who didn't need bullet points to recognize dignity when they saw it. Emily didn't stand behind a podium. She didn't read from notes. She just sat, both boots flat on the floor, her voice steady but low. "I didn't speak on camera," she said. "Not because I was scared, because the world was already watching. Sometimes you don't need to yell. You just have to stay standing long enough." A Marine near the back nodded, arms crossed. A woman in an army cap wiped her eyes once. Afterward, no one asked for autographs. One man offered her a slice of lemon cake. Another just shook her hand, firm and warm. Back home that night, her inbox held a new message. Subject: "You don't know me. My name's Rachel. I'm 19. I ship out next spring. I almost didn't go through with it. I was afraid of how I'd be seen, how I'd be handled. But I saw your face, and it looked like mine. I'm going, and I'll remember how you didn't flinch. Thank you." Emily read it twice, then shut the laptop gently. She didn't cry, but her hands lingered at the edge of the keyboard, fingers resting on silence. In the days that followed, life resumed its rhythm, if not its simplicity. She ran again early mornings, gravel underfoot, wind catching on her collar. She shopped without the weight of eyes on her back. And yet something had changed. She carried herself differently now, a bit straighter, a bit slower, like a person who knew what had tried to break her and watched it bend instead. The reforms came quietly. A memo from the chief of police was circulated: internally mandatory retraining with emphasis on physical boundaries, situational restraint, and uniform protocol. Officers would now be required to verify ID before detaining active service members, unless immediate danger was present. A new liaison position was created, bridging military and civilian enforcement, a role once suggested in passing, but now carved in ink. And there was talk, too, of including trauma response training sessions led by military psychologists designed to teach not just law, but listening. Emily didn't volunteer to lead them. But when asked for input, she offered it succinct, deliberate, like everything else she did. "The badge doesn't give you the right to touch. It gives you the responsibility not to." She didn't need applause. She needed implementation. One morning, while waiting in line at the base cafe, she felt a presence at her side. A younger officer, maybe 25, uniform, crisp, eyes focused, but unsure. "I'm Torres," the woman said. Not related, obviously. Emily raised a brow, faint smile pulling at her mouth. Small world. "I just wanted to say, I saw what happened, and I read the memo. Things are different. Not perfect, but different." Emily nodded. "That's the idea." The woman hesitated. "It matters. You matter." And then she was gone, boots echoing down the hallway. The letters were handwritten, 6 of them in total. Emily wrote them in the evenings at her kitchen table beneath the low hum of the ceiling fan and the faint scent of black coffee gone cold. The paper was thick, the kind you buy on purpose. Her pen moved steadily, each stroke deliberate, no scratch-outs, no excess. Each note was different, but the message was the same. Stand your ground. Speak when needed. Know that silence doesn't mean surrender, and that stillness can sometimes be the loudest thing in the room. She addressed them to recruits who had written to her, young women, mostly some from small towns, some from cities she'd never been to. One was from Alaska, another from Detroit. They'd seen the videos. They'd read the articles. They hadn't seen her cry or yell, but they had seen her stand. When she mailed them, she didn't add a return address. That Saturday, Emily walked into the cafe on Maple Street. The bell above the door clinked with the kind of sound that felt like a memory. She scanned the tables and saw her Lisa sitting near the back, nursing a tall mug and scrolling absently on her phone. Lisa looked up and stood before Emily reached her. They didn't speak at first. They just hugged tightly without ceremony. Not the kind of hug you give to someone famous or fragile, but the kind that says, "I remember. I never forgot." "You looked taller on the news," Lisa said, smiling. Emily chuckled. "Boots add a couple inches." They sat. The sun poured through the window behind them, casting shadows that danced between sips of coffee and quiet conversation. "I always wondered if you'd reach out," Lisa said. "I wanted to give you space." "You gave me something better," Emily replied. "You gave me truth when it mattered." Lisa looked down, fingers tracing the rim of her cup. "You weren't alone that day. I hope you knew that." "I do now." Later that week, Marcus showed up just before dusk, carrying a cooler and a small portable grill. He didn't knock. He just walked around to the porch and sat up beside her chair like he had every right to be there, and perhaps after everything he did. "I brought ribs," he said. "Figured you'd earned them." Emily raised an eyebrow. "You cook? I reheat well." The scent of barbecue and charcoal mingled with the evening air. They ate in comfortable silence, the occasional crackle of the grill punctuating the breeze. Crickets chirped somewhere in the yard. A dog barked 2 blocks over. The sun dipped low, smearing the sky in ribbons of burnt orange and indigo. They didn't speak of the gas station, or the footage, or the review board still wrapping up its final phase. But when Marcus looked over, eyes soft under the brim of his hat, Emily caught the unspoken words behind them. "You won his gaze," said, "and you didn't have to raise your voice to do it." She didn't nod, but her quiet was agreement enough. Later, when the grill cooled and the stars blinked into view, Marcus stood to leave. "You still writing those letters?" he asked. "Just mailed the last batch." He smiled. "Keep doing that. The ripple's wider than you know." She watched him go, the taillights of his truck disappearing around the corner. That night she stood at her porch rail looking out at the still street. A breeze stirred her hair. Inside, the envelope from the city still sat unopened on the table, now serving as a coaster for a half-full glass of tea. On top of it sat her old challenge coin, polished, quiet, meaningful. Emily didn't need a stage. She didn't want a headline. But she had become something else. Not a symbol. A shift. The next morning, she laced her boots the same way she had 100 times before. But when she opened the door and stepped outside, there was a difference. Not in her uniform, not in her gait, in the way the world looked back, with a little more awareness, a little more care, and just maybe a little more dignity. Emily's journey is a quiet storm, a testament to strength that doesn't shout but stands firm. Her refusal to retaliate with rage, choosing instead to hold her dignity through violation and injustice, reveals a kind of courage, often overlooked resilience in restraint. She is not just a victim of misconduct, but a mirror held up to a flawed system. What makes her story unforgettable is not the noise it created, but the silence she owned. A silence that forced the world to listen. The story teaches us that true power lies not in dominance, but in conviction. That change doesn't always begin with a speech. Sometimes it starts when one woman refuses to be diminished. Emily's poise under pressure reminds us that integrity is louder than accusation, and that quiet dignity can shake even the most rigid structures. In a world of noise, her stillness made the difference. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like and share it. Leave a comment to tell us how it inspired you, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. May God bless you and be with you every step of the way.